Welcome to the Dare to Be podcast. I'm your host, Austeen, and I created this space so we can learn to bring more depth to our relationship with life. I want to see each and every person walk through this world in their own unique way, and that requires courage. And this podcast is meant to be a platform for life thoughts, stories, life tactics, philosophy, growth, change, and evolution to support that courage and bravery. So if you want to create foundation and inner sanctuary in your life and dare to live in a way that is aligned with you, then welcome. Let's get started. Hey all, welcome back to the Dare to Be podcast. I'm your host, Austeen. This is episode number 10. This is the last episode in season number 1. I do have a bonus episode coming. I'm going to have a guest on the podcast, and I'm really excited to share that with you. We will be recording it next week, and hopefully it'll be up by the weekend. And so this podcast, it's been a minute since I have done a podcast, and it's been busy over here, and I was really feeling into how do I wrap this all up, the last 10 episodes, the last 10 recordings of my thoughts and the concepts that I teach and my beliefs about how to walk in this world in your own unique way. And I just could not settle on how to wrap it all up. So I'm not really going to wrap it all up because there is going to be a season 2 coming and there'll be more information. But as we're approaching the end of this year, I decided that it felt really good to share with you some thoughts about 2025 and thoughts about beginning again. One of my teachers, she was my 300-hour yoga teacher. This was a constant mantra, a constant affirmation she would always say to us and was always woven into her teachings, and it was begin again. Always begin again. And as we come to New Year's resolutions, we come to starting over and making goals and trying to resolve to change the way we are, I think it'd be good to talk about beginning again and how, yes, there are times, there like years, or like the beginning of the year, the first of the month, a Monday, that feels like the energy carries you into a chance to begin again. Like I hear you in that and I hear people in that, but I want to touch on beginning again as a practice that you do no matter if it's the first of the month or if it's the first of the week or if it's the first of the year. Like you can begin again at any time in any moment. So I have some prompts for you to help with reflection on this year. And I just also have some thoughts on beginning again in general. And so when you think about the new year, 2025, and what you want to see happen for yourself. For me, it's a really important practice to begin deciding what I want to see in the future, to reflect back on what has happened in the past and what's the bridge of what has happened and what I want to be. And to do that, you need reflection. And so we'll take a moment to reflect on 2024 with these prompts that I have for you. And this is just meant to give you some insight and some clarity, some intention around how you want to move forward in 2025. You can begin these intentions anytime. You can begin them tomorrow. If you'd like, you don't have to wait to the first of the year. I think if you wait until a certain moment, it's not as powerful as if you were just to begin again in small ways right now, within the next hour. I think that's where the true practice of beginning again comes from. And not to say, like I said at the beginning, not to say that the first of the year and the first of the month and the first of the week, it has some potency, some energy to carry you and carry your resolutions and your goals forward. But we can't strictly rely on that practice because those firsts of the month, of the year, of the week, they only come every now and then, right? But if you can begin to build the habit of beginning again within the next hour, beginning again within the next day, within the next 24 hours, There'll be less time and less space that you're quote unquote off the tracks or out of your habits or out of alignment. You can jump back on much faster if you practice not relying on the first of something, the first of the year, the first of the month, the first of the week. And so when we are doing these prompts, they're meant to be just intention and clarifications for you and to help you lay new bricks in your foundation for 2025, which we talked about foundation. If you go back to the very first episode, we talk about how to build foundation and how your foundation has your core values in it, which if you don't have your core values yet, like start there because you can't conduct yourself in any way, any certain kind of way if you don't know your own boundaries and your own values and morals that are within here, right? You won't live your life with integrity if you don't know how you want to move forward through it. So I would definitely recommend starting there. And also just to touch back on foundation real quick, because if you want to alter any of your foundation as you're moving forward in 2025 or even moving forward tomorrow, right? Because we don't have to wait till 2025. Make sure your foundation has things that you can control, things that you have like power over, things that just affect you, and you don't have other people in your foundation because that you can't control other people. That's a whole nother human being with their own opinions and thoughts and wants and morals and core values, right? So when you are making your foundation, make sure it's strictly about you and what you have control over. And if you go back to that episode, I'll talk about how what you have control over changes and how that affects your foundation. So our goal here with this podcast is to create or make changes to the foundation, to lay new bricks down, and come back to what it is, this fresh start, to begin again, and know that that's going to be a process you do for the rest of your life. You're going to begin again for the rest of your life. This isn't like, I'm going to start my new life today. That's not how this is going to work, based on my own experience and knowledge. So beginning again, as I said, you will be beginning again over and over again. You're going to be starting over and over again. So if you can practice beginning again sooner, like I said before, you will spend less time off the tracks, or you'll spend less time in your missteps of alignment. Because we are all going to go off the railroad tracks. We are all going to. This is not perfection, right? Life is not perfection. It's awareness and it's attention. It's having the capacity to see, oh, yeah, I'm way fucking off where I want to be right now. And I have the practice and the resolve to begin again. And I don't have to wait for a certain time to do that. I can just start now. There is a narrative that I hear about being ready. Like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Or I have to wait until I'm ready, or I have to wait until this happens. I have to wait until I'm in this position and in this environment. And I think I'm going to call BS. And I don't know if it's just my nature. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if it's my nature that those things don't have to be in place for me to begin again. I can begin in small ways right now. And it used to not be like that for me. That's why I'm calling BS, because it was a practice I had to cultivate to start, no matter what was happening around me in the environment I had and where I was at and what resources I had. I was finding a way to begin again in some way. And that was just a practice. It was like the promise, like it's keeping those promises to yourself. It started with that. It started with knowing myself and my foundation and my core values. It started with believing that I was worthy of starting again. It was me understanding and accepting that just because I completely went off the railroad tracks this week, that does not mean I'm not worthy or I am not deserving of starting again and putting great effort back into myself, right? So I will say that if you have that narrative in your head, like, I need to wait until this, I need to wait until I'm ready. I'm not ready. You're going to be waiting for a long time. And when you do it, when you do begin, because you've been waiting for that time, I I think that it's not going to be as potent and you're going to be coming off the tracks again and then waiting a long time again. And so you won't have as much time in alignment or conducting the way you want to be or moving through your life the way you want because it takes a long time for you maybe to begin again. So really practicing shortening the time between I need to wait until I'm ready versus starting. All right. So that's my thoughts there. I will say because everything is gray, right? Everything is not black and white. There are moments where the timing is not right. And that requires some discernment to know if it's your own narrative in your way that you have to have these certain conditions to make this happen. But that's just a narrative and you can actually begin right now. Or if there's something truly like in alignment and in divine timing and like you are listening in and there's just this space within you that's like, wait, wait, right? That's different. So you have to practice figuring out those two things. Like, is it the old narrative that's making you think you have to wait, or is it truly a timing of some sort in the universe or in consciousness and in yourself that is saying, wait, and you can trust that. But that's the thing about getting to know yourself is understanding the difference between narratives, old patterns and narratives, and then like intuition and divine wisdom. So, gray area. Sorry, it's not a clear answer. But I do believe in shortening the spaces between I am ready. No, sorry, I said that wrong. Between I will when I'm ready or I'm not ready yet, and then doing it and just shortening that space between like do it when you're not ready. Like maybe maybe you have a resolve or a resolution or you have resolve around a resolution to uh, start walking and it's cold outside and you don't want to walk and you have to wait until like, I got to get my hat, my new jacket. I got to make sure I've got the right boots. Like you're putting all these conditions on starting again. What if you just went out for a 3-minute walk outside? Because the small moments matter. Like this is how we begin is these small moments, these small practices. We don't take big chunks of practices at a time. That's not how we begin again. And so you put all these conditions on starting your cold winter walk, when in reality, do you have hats and gloves and do you have a warmth for 3 minutes? Can you borrow someone else's for the time being, right? There are other ways you can get to where you're going that it doesn't have to meet these perfect conditions to begin again. I had a client of mine, and she might listen to this podcast, so we'll see. I might hear from her if she does. She walked into my massage space and she said, tonight's the night. Like, I am going to go get all new groceries. I'm going to start eating right. I'm heading to the grocery store after this massage. I'm going to get everything I need to start over to clean out the bad stuff in my diet. And I'm going to start this healthy lifestyle. And in my head, and I didn't say this to her at that time. We've talked about it since, but I said, in my head, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. That's a big chunk of your life you're trying to change all at once. I would say my guidance to her would be, okay, you want to start a healthy relationship with food. You want to start with healthy, more whole foods. You got to start with one item at a time or one meal at a time. You cannot do the blank slate. It's really hard to change that much of your brain, narratives, and chemistry and habits all at once for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, how you cook, how you meal prep, like what's usually available and familiar in your fridge. Like you cannot change that all at once. So when you do want to begin again, it's small. That's why I come back to that 3-minute walk. If you wanted to start a practice of walking outside, don't wait until you're ready. Okay. So I've spoken about beginning again, shortening the time between when you say you want to change something and then you telling yourself you have to wait until these conditions are met to do it and shortening that time and just doing it anyways, not waiting until you're ready. I have spoken about There is a certain energy about the first of things, the first of the year, the first of the week, the first of the month. But the beginning again energy is here every day. Every day, every hour you can choose to begin again sooner rather than later. And it's a practice of stepping into those energies. Uh, and I think we wait to the first of things because there's more energy that carries you. So it can carry heavier and bigger changes in your life, the first of something. But we're not trying to bite off more than we can chew all at once, anyways. Like if we could not not hold ourselves to such big changes, we won't have to wait until the first of something, right? And even then, usually it doesn't pan out, right? We know the stats on New Year's resolutions. They don't fucking work. They work for some people. Remember, everything's gray. Nothing's black and white, right? So they do work for some people, but 95% of people, it doesn't work like that for them. So take this into consideration when you are deciding on making changes to your life and how you want to do that. And don't wait until you're ready. I'm going to say that over and over again. Don't over and over again. Don't wait until you're ready. You can start now. No matter the day, the hour, the month. You can start right now. Okay, here we go into the prompts. They're very simple. They're more reflection prompts. Uh, look backwards, like turn your gaze inward, look backwards, uh, gather some information and some clarity about how you've been living, and then look forward into the small changes you want to make. I'm going to challenge you to make really small changes this year, and they will impact you because they start to compound these small changes that you make. And you're more likely to stick to them, and then they will compound and you'll see the results because you actually stuck to them. Okay, here's the prompts. So you can write these down or pause the podcast and actually do them. It's up to you. Or just listen and store them away in your brain for later. What are some wins this year for you? What are some wins? Tell me about them. What went right? What were you happy about? What did you accomplish that you wanted to? What happened that you didn't expect that was such a win, right? That's what I want to know. And also, you can always text me and actually share these prompts. I'm here for the accountability in that. So you're welcome to. There's a little text on the description. Text, if you're a fan, text this and you can shoot me a message. It comes right to me. Okay, here's the next prompt. What are some situations that you wish went differently? So maybe there's a couple in there, a couple big core moments that you wished were a little different, went differently, that maybe you conducted yourself in a certain way and you wish you would have conducted yourself in this way. It was this way, the way that you wished you would have was more in line with you and your highest self and your core values. In these situations that you wish went differently, what was your role in them? How did you act in them? Were you the villain? Were you the hero? Were you trying to be the hero? Were you the listener? Were you the giver, the receiver? Like what was happening? What was your role in them? And also, what was your role in the situation itself as far as how did you bring this situation to be? Because we always have a role in it. And this is where radical honesty comes into place. How did you also cause this to happen? What was your role in them? What is your responsibility in them? And then the third prompt within this like little section here of this the situations you wish went differently. How would you like to conduct yourself in a future variation of that experience? So imagine that experience happens again, or it's a slightly different experience. How do you want to conduct yourself in this variation? Imagine what you say. Imagine how you feel, what part of you are you connected to during this experience? I tend to do this a lot, especially for me around food. There'll be situations that come up that I wish I had conducted myself a little differently around food. And I will look back on the experience and say, okay, Austeen, how do you wish you would have presented yourself? How do you wish you would have interacted with the food or the, maybe in your case, the person? Uh, and how can we support you to do that later? So that is the second cluster of prompts for you. It's just insight, reflection. Okay, the third one. When you imagine next year, what do you have time for? Tell me, what do you have time for? Do you have more time to read? Is there hobbies? This is all, things that I love. So it probably might not have nothing to do with what you actually want, but what do you have time for? More walking, more yoga, more time with family, hugs, cuddles, sex. Like, what do you have more time for when you imagine next year? Tell me all the juicy goodness, things that you have time for. More time for tea. Okay, the last prompt for you for 2024 reflection and 2025 bricklaying. What is a characteristic of yourself that you want to get to know better and you want to nurture? Just one. You probably have many that you want to evolve, but what's just one that you want to get to know better about yourself and that you want to create more space for and more support for? You want to tend to, you want to let this part of yourself grow and nurture. I would love to know. Absolutely love to know what that part of you is. So those are the prompts. That's my Begin Again 2025 offer for you today. I'm going to be moving into a couple of recaps, two recaps for me this year. One is tending the temple. I'm going to share a little bit about the retreat that I did in Pentwater, kind of a layout. I want those of you that are interested in working with me, I want to share with you some more information about how retreats are run by me. And then I'm going to share a little bit about my prison yoga recap, which is I went and lectured, shared with 250 inmates about yoga, and I just want to share that story with you. So, tending the temple recap. So, this retreat was 4 days. It was 3 days, 4 nights. No, that doesn't make any sense. It was 3 nights, 4 days. And it was in Pentwater, Michigan. I tend to do one like Michigan retreat and then 1 to 2 international or off the United States, like Virgin Islands retreats. So I sent them this beautiful PDF that had the schedule, the itinerary, the packing list, the address, had some photos of the retreat center, retreat venue. It had, of course, the schedule on there. And this is what the schedule looked like. So Thursday, people arrived. It was 11 a.m. check-in. We had our opening yoga and group session. It was 120 minutes, so 2-hour session. We had free time from there, which is private. I had private sessions. So in this retreat, I ended up doing private one-on-one sessions with people. I'm not sure I'll be doing that again, but in this one I did. We had lunch and snacks. 5 p.m. was dinner. And then 7 p.m. we did gentle yoga with Yoga Nidra, which was a 75-minute session. And this retreat, actually, I'm not even going to say this retreat, all my retreats, you will not go hungry. One of the biggest pet peeves I have about yoga retreats, food and me, we have a thing, a scarcity. I don't know what it is. I never had scarcity of food when I was younger. I don't know where it comes from, but I am definitely afraid of being hungry. And so my mom is the culinary expert. She's an absolute gem. She literally makes the retreat. People come back just for the love of her and the food that she creates with that love. And I feel like they don't even come for me, which is fine. No, I'm kidding. But she's a staple in these retreats. So you'll never go hungry. There's always food available. There's 3 meals a day. There's snacks, and she can whip up pretty much anything for you when you need it, just so you know. So that was the first day, Thursday. Friday, we had yoga, or we had breakfast at 8 a.m. And then we did a 9 a.m. yoga session. It was 2 hours. It was morning flow, which is chill. And then we did journaling sessions and partner activities. And then we had free time and lunch and snacks. And then 4 p.m., we had our second 2 hour yoga session. It was vinyasa flow. And then we did journaling and group session after. And then we had dinner at 6:30 p.m. And at my retreats, you have an option to dress up for dinner if you'd like. I always dress up for dinner. It's a time that we can put on clothes that we usually wouldn't and clothes that make us feel really good. We can adorn ourselves, practice adornment. That's a practice in itself. So you always welcome to dress up, but it's never expected. Uh, on that note, all of my retreats, people will say this. I'm going to say it. I tell all my students that everything, all the activities are, they are, oh, what's it when you don't, it's up to you if you want to do it. I can't think of that word right now. Um, but you don't have to attend all the sessions, like the yoga, the journaling sessions. You don't have to attend. It's all a choice. And people will say that in their yoga retreats, and then they'll be like low key passive mad at you for not attending because they take it personally. I do not. I have had students sleep the whole day because they needed that rest. I had people come to the afternoon sessions and not the morning sessions. I do not passively, aggressively, or judge you for that. Like that is what I want. So know that when I say you can truly decide not to attend some of the things, it's all a choice. Please, I mean that. I definitely mean that because I have experienced that and I've heard that from yoga teachers about, yeah, you don't have to come. Everything's a choice, and then they get kind of upset with you because they've taken it personally, and that's not how I roll. So that was Friday. Saturday, we did 8 a.m. breakfast again. We did 9 a.m. morning flow. We had free time, private sessions, and lunch and snacks. And then we did a beach excursion to Lake Michigan for 3 hours. It was at 1 p.m. And then we did 5:30 p.m. dinner. And then we did a night 7 p.m. tender yoga out on the deck. It was absolutely beautiful. And then Sunday, we did closing session and yoga at 8:30 a.m. 10 a.m. was breakfast, and 11 a.m. was checkout. So that was a 4-day yoga retreat with me. So with the food, when I do my yoga retreats, I send out a form for food that gives us an idea of your dietary preferences and any allergies or restrictions that you have. And I always bring out just thoughts to contemplate when you are moving into a retreat. Is one of the thoughts is around phones. So, decide if you want to have any structure around your phone when in retreat. I find it helpful to put a plan in place prior to arriving. Don't say I'll figure out my phone situation when I get there. Like have a plan prior to it. These can be really heavy boundaries around your phone. It can be light boundaries. An example with myself that I did when I was in Greece is I did not check my phone for 30 minutes before and after the yoga practice sessions. And it was a really light boundary. And then I did have a couple of days where I did a heavy boundary when I was in Greece, where I did not look at my phone for 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I did that twice. So that's an example of a heavy boundary and a light boundary around phones when you're in retreats, because retreats really meant to retreat in, like get in. And the phone is such a space where we get out, where we are in external. So again, it's helpful to think of ahead of time. And just know you have as much free time. You can make all the choices around what to attend and what not to. You have the freedom to do that when you're in my retreats. I truly mean that. A little bit more about tending the temple at this certain retreat is I want to talk about what we actually discussed in our journaling sessions. So the energy of this retreat was to reclaim your slowness, your tenderness, and your love for self in an enclosed, immersive setting. I really hounded in the idea that you are worth great effort. That was a key concept here. And so one thing I always talk about in my opening sessions with retreats is let people have their experiences. Let yourself have your experience. Let it be what you need. There's no agenda you have to stick to. You can let it be, whatever it needs to be. So I'm here to support and to love you, to offer you thoughts, ask you questions that make you think. I'm here to help you make the best decision in your life moving forward. But what I tend to see is when people start to cry, or people have a breakdown, or they get sad, or they get angry, or even happy, the other retreaters move to change their state. They want to move them out of that state of emotion and into something more neutral, more familiar, more comfortable. And so what I ask when I talk about this in my opening session is let people have their experiences. Do not seek to change their experience, okay? You might sit with them, you might maybe you might sit with them, but I would let them be, let them have it. I'm the retreat facilitator. I will uh talk to them, speak to them, and see what they need, if anything. But do not seek to change that, because they need to be with those emotions. They need to feel it, especially in a safe space like a retreat. At least, for retreats that have this authenticity and this experience of holding a container. So that is something that we talk about in my retreats, is let people have their experience. I will be there for them. But you as a student, you do not have to be there for them. It's not your job and it's not your role. We did a little icebreaker where I asked them to tell me about a story in their life, and at any point in their life, just the first story that came up, like tell me something about a story that happened in your life. We did some reverse engineering, which means I asked them, how do you want to feel at the end of this retreat? And what steps do you need to take to get there? So we reverse engineered. How do you want to feel? What do we need to do in the next 4 days to get you there? So that was one of the prompts. The two prompts that we spoke on consistently throughout this retreat was, what does the voice of my body sound like? And what is the difference between a house and a temple? So those were the two things we really dissected and discussed. Okay. And also for this retreat in particular, I had little notes on so we have the food, right? Think about like a kitchen island, and there's all this food. And then it had little metal things with a card on them to tell you like what was the food, what was in it. And then at the bottom in red, uh, it had a check-in for each food. Will this feel good in my body? Is this what my body needs? And so even the food and the menu, we were constantly trying to check in with our body to get to know our body a little bit better. And then I told a story. It's called the Foxwoman Story, Thursday night. And we did Yoga Nidra. And there was in Yoga Nidra, you create a resolve or an intention. And for me, I asked them to put in the resolve to get to know the body's voice better. So that's what we did our Yoga Nidra around. And then Friday morning, we did some gratitude work. We talked about intuition. We talked about what does overcommitment feel like in the body. We made a list of all the reasons you can't say no to the commitments that you wish you could. And we talked about how much capacity are we currently running at? Like, are we at 100? Are we at 80? Are we at 40? So that was some of the prompts we discussed and talked about. We also did a session on saying no. We talked about the tools and practices of saying no. We practiced receiving no with a partner, and we also practiced giving a no with a partner. So no is really helpful because it helps when we get to know like NO better, we can stop overcommitting because we're more comfortable with saying no. And we legitimize the reasons that we say no. So we did that, and we took time to get to know why do we want to answer no. And we legitimized our no's. So when the overcommitment questions come again in our life, we are more apt to say no and stop working at 100% capacity. And then we talked about what happens when we slow down and what happens when we say no more. Like, what happens? Do we feel guilt? Do we feel shame? Do we get antsy, or do we love it? Do we like, yes, finally, peace to myself? Let's see. Some other things that we touched on during the retreat. We talked about some wins, about some decisions that we recently felt good and confident in. We reflected on that decision, How did we get there? What signs were in our body to make us feel confident in that decision that we made? Were there any signals that were there any signals in our body that were telling us it's the right choice? And then that was Friday's work. And then Saturday's work, we talked about thriving versus striving exercise, which I think I've shared with you on the podcast. So, what needs are being met right now? What needs are being unfulfilled or ignored? What practices and concepts do you want to bridge and integrate into your life? So, thriving versus thriving, and how do we bridge from that's not supposed to say strive. I'm not supposed to be saying striving. Sorry. Thriving versus surviving. I was like, this is not right. Okay, so we did thriving versus surviving exercises because the goal is to bridge our survival state to our thriving state. And so we did that by acknowledging what was being ignored and unfulfilled as far as our needs and what needs were being met. So that was Saturday's work. And then we also talked about on Saturday, how do you show love and appreciation for your body? We listed the things and how they made us feel and why would we do them. And we really got to know, okay, what makes our body feel loved and appreciated. And then the closing session on Sunday, we talked about integration. We came up with a plan to actually begin to meet the needs that we are currently not fulfilling and how we can weave them into our life in small ways. And we also talked about, we did talk about, but they actually voice recorded a dream and an affirmation for themselves in a routine that they envisioned, and they recorded it, and now they have it in their phones from the retreat. So that was tending the temple. There was a lot in there. That was a deep dive into the body, our relationship with it, and our idea of love and appreciation and slowing down and being tender with ourselves. That was the whole retreat. So hopefully that was helpful. It gives you a little insight to what my retreats are like. And I'm deciding if I'm going to share some of the prison with you. I don't think I am because this is already a little bit longer than I had anticipated. So prison yoga recap to come later. I do want to share that story with you because it's a good one. Okay, thanks for listening and thanks for being here. Those of you who are on YouTube versus Spotify, Apple Music, like happy that you are here. A couple of things. If you want to work with me, continue working with me. I have my online yoga academy, has over 100 videos up there now. They range from 8 minutes to 78 minutes, all different sizes and different styles of yoga, yin yoga, tender yoga, vinyasa yoga. There's some meditations on there, and there's 3 mini bands classes. I don't put the mini bands on anymore, but there's a few up for those who did appreciate and like those. I have so I have 2 yoga retreats next year. One is sold out, and that's in St. Croix, but Costa Rica in June 8th through the 14th is open and available to register. It's June 8th through the 14th. It's a freaking incredible resort and venue. You'll have the resort completely. We will have the resort completely to ourselves. There won't be any other yoga retreats there, which is really unheard of in resorts. It's in Costa Rica. It's in the jungle. I mean, it's just, if you haven't, go on my Instagram and look at some of the pictures of the resort. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And this is going to be similar to tending the temple as far as theming. Like I theme everything. It's not just going to be yoga. It's going to be for this retreat, it's going to be about nurturing characteristics of ourselves, nurturing ourselves, tending to ourselves. It's not going to be super heavy in deep, but it will be like medium. There'll be some lightness. There'll be some reflection and insight. And it's just going to be completely held in this container. It's such a magical space. So I hope to see you there. All right. Let's see. I dare you to begin sooner than you start. That's my dare for you. I dare you to begin sooner than you think. I dare you to begin and start before you're ready. I dare you to do that, okay? Have a wonderful day, week, wherever this finds you at, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. If you found value in this podcast or it made you smile, please consider leaving a 5-star review and subscribe on whichever platform you are listening on. This allows other like-minded people to find me. If you would like to support me in other ways, check out my website, austeenheaney.com, or freetobeyogaandmassage.com. Thank you, and don't forget, sometimes the biggest dare that we can do in a day is to have hope. Until we meet again.